Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and today we're going through the best work knives. From my opinion, the best work knives. If you're looking for a work knife, one of these knives is going to be for you, and in my opinion, the best work knives you can buy. Now, I've done construction my whole life, so when I think of a work knife, I mostly think of construction, but I've also worked in factories and things like that. So, you know, I think of a labor job, factory, or construction, one of the three. Now, these knives are going to be super versatile, and that's kind of the beauty of them, because they will work in lots of different, places or different job, whatever your job is. So, first off is the Cold Steel SR1 Lite. Now, this is specifically for somebody needing a cutting pry bar, because it is just that. It is extremely thick. The lock is the strongest lock you can get on a knife, and it is incredibly, incredibly strong. So if you're going to be using your knife as a pry bar / cutting, then I think this is the best option for you. It's got FRN scales, like I said, the triad lock, which is extremely, extremely strong. Tonto blade, you're going to be able to use the secondary tip and the primary tip. You're going to be able to pry with this front end portion. This will handle stabbing and things like that. You won't have to worry about the lock failing, and you can use it one-handed if you need to. Now, it also can use gravity because of the blade being so thick. So, just know that if you're going to get this, it definitely will pop out with, a little bit of force and with gravity. But very comfortable in the hand. It's a knife you can bear down on and definitely be tough on. Now, the next knife, I'm going to say, if you want to be tough on your knife, but you also want it to be somewhat of a good cutter too, I recommend the Spyderco Shaman. I think this is a great hard use knife, something you can be tough on, yet it's also able to cut very cleanly. So it's going to be a great cutter and something you can be a little bit tough on. It's got a compression lock, so you can one hand open and close it. And it's a strong lock. You can choke up and get nice and tight to the edge, or you can choke back. There are lots of handle materials for this if you do want to get aftermarket, so there are a lot of different options with that. This one is the S30V version, but yeah, awesome knife. Now, sticking with that same concept, the Benchmade Griptilian sheep's foot. This is going to be a great hard use knife, something you can be a little bit tougher on, but it's also going to cut fairly well. It's a little bit thick behind the edge, so it's not going to be the best slicer, but when you put a low angle edge on it, it's going to cut really good, and it's one of my all-time favorite work knives. I love how I can reverse it in a reverse grip. I can go forward, I can go pinch grips, which that's, in my opinion, what's important about a good work knife. A good work knife should be very versatile with neutral handles. Now, if you like the thought of that, a straightforward blade shape with neutral handles, I like the BANTER XL. This is one you can get nice and close to the edge, or you can choke back, but it's got a beautiful spear point blade that's going to work for utility cuts and slicing. Not going to be much of a hard use knife, but it's going to be a great work knife. You can turn it around, cut backwards, you can cut forward, you can do utility cuts. It's a good size, and the ergos are very, very good in the hand. Next, another one of my all-time favorite, obviously these are, my picks for the work knives, but the Spyderco GAYLE Bradley. You can't go wrong with the Spyderco GAYLE Bradley. I think that this might be the best work knife that has ever existed. Now, yes, it's tough. Yes, it's slicey, but more slicey than tough. Granted, the lock, this is a liner lock, and it's a nice strong lock. They made sure of that. The ergos are very, very neutral, which is one of the best things about this. It's very balanced and just very comfortable in the hand. But it is thin behind the edge. It has a nice, thin, deep hollow grind, which is going to help with cutting performance. But, it's not going to be as tough, at the edge. The spine thickness is good, but it does get down very thin behind the edge. The one problem with it, though, is that they don't give you good lock bar access, and you do have to cut your own in if that bothers you, which I personally think is a must. Now, if you like the way this looks, but it's too expensive for you, and you want something that works very similar to this, the CIVIVI Elementum button lock the large version, not the small one, because they have a new version with a flipper, but specifically the big one. It has the same exact spear point blade, literally the exact same shape, hollow grind, same thickness behind the edge. The ergos are very neutral, just the same, and it's only like $65. 14C 28M blade steel. Fantastic blade steel for a work knife. It's not going to hold an edge for an incredibly long time, but it definitely holds an edge long enough, and it's easy to tune up, easy to sharpen, and it's a super tough and very stainless steel, so it's going to work out good. And this blade shape mixed with these ergos are going to work great. This is probably considered a gravity knife, so you want to be careful with the laws and restrictions with carrying something like this. As an influencer in the knife community, I get a lot of questions on where can I sell some of my knives. Well, today's video sponsor is NFASale.com. Not only are they a site made specifically for the knife community, but they are my personal first choice if I were to need to sell a knife. For the sellers, the interface is seamless to use, offering a simple solution to post your knives for sale in a place where people will actually see your listing. Unlike Instagram, there are also excellent protections put in place for both the buyer and the seller. If you sell your knife, you get to keep 92.5% of the profits, and you don't pay the consignment fee until after it's sold. Obviously, a place where you can sell knives means you can also buy knives. There are some surprisingly good deals on NFASale.com, and I'd recommend it as a place to check for models that you might be interested in before going straight to a typical knife dealer. Overall, the site is simple to use. The peer ratings help weed out crappy sellers. The shipping rates are very competitive, and to top it all off, they are now an official dealer of Urban EDC Supply. If you haven't checked out NFASale.com, I'm going to link it down in the description. Definitely go and check it out if you want to sell or buy knives. Now, the next one is the Hogue Deca. Now, the Hogue Deca does not come with these scales, so these are aftermarket scales. I do recommend getting the aftermarket scales or getting the G10 model if you don't want to spend money on an extra pair of scales. Or you can do this. You could just go with the drop bear. So it's going to be lesser steel, so it's 154 cm, but it does come in 20 CV and in LMAX if you want that, if you don't mind paying extra. But this is a little over $100, like $120, something like that. And it's got aluminum scales already, and it's got the clutch lock. So you can turn the strength of your crossbar lock stronger in this case. But the blade shape is great. Ergos, very neutral. It's going to work in any grip. It's fidgety, and it is a nice strong locking mechanism. And it comes with extra Omega springs that are even thicker than the ones that are in the knife when you buy it. Now, before we move on, I do need to bring up, like the Hogue Deca with the Wharncliffe or sheep's foot blade, with this type of blade shape, this is going to be great for utility cutting. So if you're doing a job that requires a lot of precision and cutting down on top of surfaces where you need a downward tip, I recommend the Critical Mini. So this is the Kaiser Critical Mini, and this one is in 154 cm. So there is a more premium option in 3V steel that has a flipper tab, but this is the non-flipper tab version, and it is very affordable, but it has a downward tip, so it's going to be great for utility cuts. Another one is the KANSEPT Convict. This is an amazing knife. It's going to be great for utility cuts, so if you need to cut out, paper or leather or anything where you're tracing things and scribing things, this is going to be great. But it's also going to be a very comfortable slicer, and it's going to work great in reverse grips. This one's also in 154 cm, and it does come in different handle materials like micarta. And then it does also have a premium version, so this is the premium version of this knife if you want to spend a little bit more money. It does come in S35 VN and then titanium. And then the flipper option of this, sorry, I should have showed you, is this one right here. So this one comes in 3V and is right around $100. So it's actually a really good price for 3V, but the flipper tab does kind of push you back just a little bit, but not too bad though. So, but this one is more affordable with the 154 cm. Now, if you're needing a downward facing tip, but you also want a little bit more versatility, I always recommend the Spyderco PM2. I recommend the Spyderco PM2 in crew wear the most. Not this version, this one has the aluminum scales, but the one in brown micarta. It's an amazing knife. The steel takes incredibly sharp edges, and it holds a really good fine edge for a good amount of time. And you're going to be able to do the precision work and slicing capabilities. So it's going to be great as a tool, as a work knife, and it comes with a compression lock that is a fantastic lock. We've talked about it already in this video a couple times, but the compression lock is a great locking system that you can easily open and close one-handed. Now, if you are in a place where you can't have a locking knife, the CIVIVI TRAILBLAZER. This comes in a smaller version, and then this one's the XL. The smaller version has a 3-inch blade. This one's the 3.5-inch blade. The smaller one comes in 14C28N. The bigger one, this XL, comes in D2 steel, but it is a slip joint. So if you're in a place that you can't have a locking knife, this is an amazing work knife. One, it has a very strong pull, but you have a good leverage to grab on, and when it snaps into the open position, there's a lot of tension on that spring. So it's going to be fairly safe for cutting, doing harder tasks. It's extremely comfortable in the hand. This is a hollow ground drop point blade, so it's going to stay nice and thin. It has really good cutting geometry. This passes through materials very, very well. Steel body, it's a full bolster, and then it comes in different color G10s. Now, the only problem is this is discontinued. So if you are in a place where you can't have a locking knife, or you're looking for a non-locking knife, just like this, it's smaller or this size, I'm going to link it down in the description, just like everything else from this video, but they are discontinued, so you got to get them right now because they will be sold out soon. So figured I'd let you guys know about that. Before we get to my number one, I do want to go through a couple budget options that I think are really, really good. So if you are on a tight budget, one of these knives is the one you want. So one, the Cold Steel Toughlite. This is basically a utility razor blade on steroids. It's only AUS-8 steel, but damn it is it good. It does come with the triad lock, which we already said is the strongest locking mechanism. Super solid lockup. It is something you can be hard on, you can be tough on, but it's going to have a nice hollow grind on it, so it's going to cut really, really good. Compact and small, and it even comes in a smaller version, the Toughlite Mini, but this one's very small already, so I don't know if you need to go that small, but an incredible, incredible work knife. And even if you already have a primary work knife, this is a great backup. Next is the Praxis, the CIVIVI Praxis, under 45 bucks, liner lock, 9CR, 18 MOV steel. Super good ergonomics. You're going to be able to use it in multiple grips. You're going to be able to choke up. Nice and slicey. Beautiful spear point blade. This is probably my number one choice for a work knife under $50. It is absolutely amazing. Next one, the KUBEY Momentum. Because of the way the blade kind of drops down, it makes it to where you can trap materials, whether you're pushing forward or cutting backwards. The ergos are hand melting. Good access to the lock bar. It is pretty fidgety. Not that that's important with a work knife, but it still is. But it's got a beautiful blade shape, beautiful handle, and it's a fantastic shape and size for a work knife. The next one, SENCUT ACTIUM. Now this one's going to be good if you're wanting a mega slicer, if you're wanting something super duper slicey. It's got a straight clip point, deep hollow grind. It's going to slice really good. You're going to be able to choke up. It's D2 steel, so not the best steel, but D2 still, it's got good edge retention, but you're going to have to worry about corrosion, and it's not the toughest steel in the world, but you know what though? This is an amazing, amazing knife all the way around. And I highly, highly recommend the SENCUT ACTIUM. Now, by the way, the Praxis does come in a mini. I should have said that. So if this looks good to you, but it's too big, they do have a mini version for like 30 bucks. So D2 steel, not the 9CR, but super snappy spear point blade. And, you know, it's a compact little knife, but it is a very versatile, good compact knife. Next one, Kershaw Leak. I gotta bring this on there because I actually used this for construction, this exact one, for a long time. Or not too long, but, you know, for a little while. And you can see it. I mean, it's beat up pretty good. The spring is broken because it does come with a speed safe, which I don't like speed safe, so I'm okay with it not being, you know, there. I don't mind it being manual, but it's got a hollow ground Wharncliffe blade, and this thing is very similar to how we were talking about with the Toughlite. This is a little utility blade. It's fantastic at utility cuts, and it's also got a very thin blade, so the geometry passes through materials really good. Not the best ergos, but that's not the type of knife it is. It's going to be a pinch grip knife for the most part. The Kershaw Leak, USA made. What a great knife. And then the last one before we get to my top pick, the Kaiser Roach. The Kaiser Roach, spear point blade, deep hollow grind. You can take the flipper tab off, so it does come with a flipper tab, but you can take it off. Fantastic action. And it's going to be a mega cutter, great utility cuts, super comfortable in the hand, especially if you remove the flipper tab. But 154 cm blade steel, G10 scales, and yeah, the Kaiser Mini Roach is amazing. Next, the American Lawman by Cold Steel. One of the best work knives you can buy because it is extremely tough with its triad lock, like we talked about before. Extremely tough lock. Then it's got a versatile blade shape that's going to work for most things. Then it's super slim and lightweight. So it's going to be fairly comfortable in the hand, a good cutter, and it's going to have a nice balance with toughness and sliciness. Now, my one biggest complaint, I'm not a big fan of the finger guard, but there's nothing stopping you from just cutting it off. There's no liner or nothing in the way. It's just the G10, so you can just slice it off or file it off or something. Now, that will, in my opinion, make it a little bit more comfortable and better to do reverse grips, but you don't have to do that, and it's still really good just the way it is. It does protect you from slipping up, and you can still choke up pretty good. So, the Cold Steel American Lawman is, I think, one of the best work knives you can buy. Then last, which is my favorite, is going to be the MANIX. I think most of you guys knew this. I think this is one of the best work knives, whether it's the XL or this one. Now, I do think that, you know, if you're doing lots of box cutting, rope cutting, strap cutting, plastic, things like that, and it's mostly edge retention you're looking for, then even a Para 3 and Maximet might be the best option you can go with, just because it has such high edge retention and it's got a tough lock, and you know, it's relatively compact. But the Spyderco Manx 2 comes in many different versions. You can get an FRN, G10, different blade steels, but it has the ball lock, which is an extremely reliable, very easy to use locking system. It's strong, it's tough, and even though the blade wouldn't be considered a tough blade, this is not one you're going to be prying with. But if you're doing hard use cutting, the Spyderco Manx, you can't go wrong with it, or the XL version. All right, guys, thank you guys for watching. Peace.